Good Sunday morning, everybody. I want to bring you an update on Tropical Storm Nate. So it's no longer a hurricane. It actually has weakened significantly overnight last night. So it was a Category 1 when it made landfall as it sat over the very warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Now it's sitting right along the border of Mississippi and Alabama as a tropical storm. As of the 8 o'clock advisory, moving quickly off to the north-northeast at 23 miles per hour, winds at 45 miles per hour, gusting up to 85. Now by this afternoon, it should remain a tropical storm and then quickly by Monday becoming post-tropical as it stays over land. And it's going to interact with a cold front. That front will help to bring some of that tropical moisture into our region. And notice by Tuesday, it is quickly out of here over the New England coastline. So again, Nate not going to deal with it for too much longer, but again, it will be increasing our chances for rain. So talking about that cold front, obviously with the cold front behind it, it ushers in some cooler weather. So right now we're talking 40s and 50s behind that front. 53 in Omaha, 51 in Wichita, Billings down to 41 right now. Out ahead of that front, we're in what's called the warm sector. So we've got those winds out of the south and southwest, and that's bringing in that very warm and humid air. So many locations sitting in the 70s, but behind that front, again, it will quickly push Nate out of here, and behind it, we're going to talk about some much cooler weather. All right, so let's talk about the ingredients that we need for growth and what ingredients work against a hurricane growing or a tropical storm growing. So for growth, we need a disturbance that's at least 300 miles from the equator. We need very warm ocean temperatures, plenty of moisture, and also low wind shear. When wind shear is high, it tends to rip off the tops of those tropical systems. Working against that growth, dry air, moderate to high wind shear, cooler ocean waters, and land interaction. That's what happened with Nate. The water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico were 1, 2, 3 degrees above normal, and then it moved on land and it prohibited its growth. So it really worked against it growing and continuing to strengthen or even maintain itself as it moved over land. So as it continues to move to the north and east, it will continue to weaken. Now in October, in terms of where tropical systems typically develop, there are about 3 areas, but there's one area in particular where most of them develop, in an area in particular that we watch really closely, and that's in the Gulf of Mexico. This area here, and it typically will skirt over Florida, the southern tip of Florida, and out into the Atlantic. So that's one of the areas there. The number 2 spot in the Caribbean Sea, primarily the Western Caribbean Sea, we typically see development in October, and it typically curves off out into the Atlantic. And then the number 3 spot is the Atlantic Ocean. Now, many of you know the Atlantic Ocean has seen quite a bit of traffic, especially in September. We had quite a bit of major hurricanes work through the Atlantic, so it's almost tapped out at this point. But in October, we can't rule out some development in the Atlantic Ocean. Again, it's not the hot spot for development. That's really the Gulf of Mexico and the Western Caribbean Sea. All right, if you do have any questions, don't forget to find me on social media: Facebook Iisha Scott, Instagram Iisha Scott, and 13 Iisha Scott on Twitter. We'll bring you another update on Nate when likely.